have a friend that wanted to buy this house. It's pretty nice, but hopefully he didn't buy it, because it would have ruined his life. But let's see why, because it could be the same for you. We are all taught since a young age that buying a house has to be one of our life objectives. This is why it is the dream of most people. The greatest accomplishment that you have to achieve. They also tell us that it is a great investment, so that you could not be wrong at buying a house. But well, this is bullshit. Because buying a house could make you poorer than you might be now, and ruin your next 30 years of life. And the numbers prove that. And this is why I want to share with you why buying a house could ruin your life, for who this actually applies, and also what you can do about it. And to do that, I'll also show you a free tool that I developed so that you can do all of this in just a couple of minutes. So my friend always wanted to build a family and buy a house to spend time with them there. And this was already his objective during high school. And now he has a girlfriend since many years, he has a fixed job that pays rather well, and so they want to start their family. And so in such a situation, it's clear that their obvious conclusion is that they have to buy a house now. It's the good moment to do it. I mean, why wouldn't they? It's their objective, and they've always said they wanted that. And so they started researching a house, but firstly they needed a budget. So they started making some estimations about how much money they could afford for the house. As well as they started looking at which type of house they wanted. And they wanted a house with 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, an office and a big kitchen with, if possible, also a garden for the kids. And so they started searching, but they couldn't find anything in their budget. And so they had to start looking for something that was smaller, in another area, or less modern. And actually they managed to find something. I still remember the evening we were having dinner that they told me, hey look, that's a house we're going to buy. And they were extremely happy, because they managed to find the house as they wanted, except for the fact that it wasn't in the area they wanted to. And so they were ready to go to the bank to ask for the mortgage, so that they would get their 30 years loan and buy the house. But hopefully they knew I have fun with numbers and with finance. And so we went through together all of their estimations. And wow, hopefully he did, because otherwise he would have lost more than $2 million. And this could actually happen to anyone, even you. Because when we went through his numbers, there were many things that were wrong. And this really happens to most of the people. And especially because there are many things that are not taken into account when buying a house. And just to say some of the most important ones that you always have to remember, there is the fact that if you have a variable mortgage rate, it will fluctuate. And this means that you have to use a margin of safety, which anyway you have to use in any case. But in this case, you need a margin of safety that is even higher to compensate in case, like right now, the mortgage rates are much higher. Then there are the closure expenses, the property tax, there is the insurance for the house, and something that is often underestimated, as my friend also did, are the maintenance costs. Because, for example, having a house has a much higher maintenance cost, especially if you have a garden or a swimming pool or whatever. There is also the cost of life that is increasing because of inflation that you have to consider. As well as if you want to have kids, like my friend, he wanted 2. You have to consider that you will have to incur in these costs over the next years. And this makes a huge difference. As well as if you consider your income, that it will just continuously increase all over your life, and you don't consider how much savings, how big your emergency fund is, as well as your investments. There are so many variables that there's surely something that will get wrong. And so making the analysis together, we saw that he estimated the cost of his family life for the next 30 years at 2.2 millions, but it actually was of 4.5 millions. That's more than the double, and it would have surely ruined him. Because it means that probably he would have started the mortgage fine, but at some point, because of the kids or whatever reason, he would have struggled to pay the monthly rent, so he would have maybe asked another loan to cover for these expenses, thinking that in the future he would be able to pay for it. But when you do this, what actually happens is that you're entering in the loop of debt. And this is something that will destroy your finances. There are already too many families that have lost their house and all their money because of that. And this actually is also to buy a house which is not even the one that he actually wanted. It was the second choice. And so this actually shows the importance of while preparing such a huge and important financial decision. And so this means that you really have to be prepared. And this is also the reason why it can be better not to buy. Because yes, I know, in general people think that renting is bad because you're just throwing money away, giving it to the landlord, and you're not taking anything out of it. But isn't actually paying interest the same thing? I mean, there is a great misconception about renting in general, and this actually often drives people to buy a house before they're actually ready to. But in general, renting is cheaper than buying a house, considering clearly all the costs associated to a house. You have no risk of that. It gives you flexibility. It even allows for better financial planning because you won't have unexpected expenses as you might have with your own house. And all of this means that you can actually save more money and invest more this way. But actually, the most important point I want to say is that renting allows you to take the time to correctly plan your future, to correctly assess your expenses and your overall financial situation, so that you can build a stronger financial position that will allow you to buy the house you want and that you can afford. And all of what I'm saying actually looks very logical and simple that everybody does, but people in general underestimate the importance of all of these costs I'm talking about. And there are tens of millions of people that got ruined by that, and I'm sure you don't want to do the same. And so what do you have to do? So to make it simple, there are actually tons of tools on the internet that you can use to estimate your monthly cost linked to the house. For example, you can find one in Zillow and another one in Bankrate. And this will really help you to understand what is the actual income that you will have after paying everything for the house. And at this point, with this income, you will have to consider the other expenses which are not linked to the house. Because if you want a kid, a study shows that in the US you have to pay $200,000 to raise him to 18 years old. And this is a huge amount of money that you have to plan for. And you also have to consider that your cost of life will increase over the time, because one, there is inflation, but two, as we get older, as maybe we earn more money, we will spend more. And yes, okay, now it can look complicated what I'm saying, but that's why I made a tool to make it easy for you. And it is completely free, so let's see how it works. And you just have to go in the description to find the link. So okay, here is the tool I built, and it's very simple. Here you have two tabs where you have to enter all of your costs related to housing, and in the second tab your income and the other costs. Okay, so for example, here I'm taking the example of my friend where I've already entered all of the different parameters, and as well as for the income and costs where you just have to enter everything. Here are clearly some estimations, and the important thing is actually down there where you have firstly two charts where one tells you the cost of living and housing over the 30 years, and to know that this chart doesn't consider the kids and other expenses. And so here you can see, for example, in pink the annual cost of housing as well as the cost of living with the safety margin. And then on the right here you can see the income that you will have, net income, aligned also to the salary increase expectations that you have. And these two charts together will allow you to have a rough comparison about what your expected costs are and how much you will earn. But again, clearly they're estimations, but they can already give you a view on how your future will be. But now let's go to the most important one, I think, because this is the overall income and cost that you will have over the next 30 years. And this also includes children and other type of costs that you might have. And here, for example, you can see that my friend actually would have to pay more for his life over the next 30 years than how much he will earn. And this means that there is something that he has to change about all of that. Because let's be clear, that's not exact science, okay? That's an estimation that you can make, but it gives you a guideline, an idea of the direction your life is having. And this will tell you where you're ending up to and if you can actually afford all of these expenses that you're planning to. And this is why it is so important to understand your expenses and your income, because your future will depend on this choice, on this analysis that you're making to buy a house. And so making errors in this decision could really ruin your life. And so to be sure that you are making the correct decision, you have to understand your finances and how much you actually need to afford your dream house. Because if you don't, you will end up broke, struggling to reach the end of the month. But you can change that very easily. And you can do that just by subscribing to this channel, starting by watching this playlist. Because this is actually my objective. It is to help you living a better financial life. Thank you for watching and see you soon.